Hello, welcome to Conversations. I'm your host, Loria Rambo, and today we're talking to Ms. Gay Lynn about trigger proofing your life. Welcome to Conversations, Gay. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now we have a table of 12 tools to keep your cool and confidence. And trigger proof is your baby.
Yes.
What is trigger proof?
Well, Trigger Proof started in the workplace because many people in the workplace get their buttons pushed, and they did not really truly understand what some of their emotional triggers are. As a psychotherapist, I'm trained to understand some of cognitive behavioral psychology. And part of what Trigger Proof is a very simplified, easy to understand form of cognitive behavioral psychology. So I started in the workplace, helping adults learn what are their emotional triggers, where they're getting their buttons pushed, and how to deal with people in the workplace. Sometimes they were dealing with bullies in the workplace. Sometimes they were dealing with customers that were irate. Sometimes they were dealing with some of their own stuff, and they didn't quite know how to handle themselves. So I designed the program over a 10-year period of time. I looked, as I was doing all these trainings in the corporate world, for government, for cities, for municipalities, I looked at where were people consistently getting their buttons pushed and designed 12 tools to go along with those particular triggers.
So, Gay, when you, in your studies, in your research about trigger proof, I guess the question that keeps coming up is, what makes a person want to exhibit bullying behavior towards another person? What is that about?
Well, it depends on what age group you're talking about.
Okay.
But the essence of any kind of bullying behavior, it is about power. And you have to know that going in, because part of what I teach them in Trigger Proof is how to hold on to your power. And we use the analogy of a remote control.
Okay.
Everybody has their own power or their own remote control. Now, if I allow somebody to push my buttons, what am I doing with my remote control then? My power.
You're giving it to me.
I'm giving it to whoever is demonstrating that bullying behavior, whoever's pushing my buttons. I give them the power over me. Now, that's kind of the good news and the bad news. The good news is I can also take it back. The bad news is, how many times have we allowed people, unconsciously or consciously,
To push our buttons.
to push our buttons and then give them power over us? So it doesn't matter if you're in the workplace and you're experiencing bullying. It doesn't matter if you're elementary, middle school, high school. At all times, and the earlier you learn this, the better off you are. Because my contention is, if we teach this to kids when they're 10 years old, and believe me, is we're going through these tools and we're looking at some of them. Think about yourself at 10 years old. If you knew this at 10,
Right.
how different, I know my life would have been very different. So our lives would be very different if we knew this early on. So the adults in the workplace said, our kids need this. So I designed a program for elementary, middle school, and high school kids so that they would have the 12 tools to keep their cool and confidence at that particular age level.
So we're really talking about self-control.
Yes, and here's what the social scientists say. There's 3 things that we need for success. IQ is one of them, but you get what you get, right?
Right.
So
Hey.
can't have, and you make the best of whatever you have, okay? The next one is income, socioeconomic status, and again, you get what you get. So, you have to make the best of it. The last one is impulse control. And here's the place where we can have the greatest impact. By teaching our children at a very young age to have impulse control. So then people say, well, how young do they need to have this in place? They should have impulse control in place by the age of 4.
Really?
4 years old. And statistically, children who have impulse control in place by the time that they're 4 years old, as they're progressing through, become successful adults. But if they don't have impulse control in place and it continues to not be matured, this is what we're calling emotional maturity. You know, we can have physical maturity, we can have cognitive maturity, but this is emotional maturity. The sooner that we have that emotional maturity in place and it continues to develop. Now, there's some things that arrest that emotional maturity too. Drugs, alcohol. I've also worked in drug and alcohol rehabilitation. I've taken this, it's 12 tools to keep your cool and confidence, into working with people in recovery because they get triggered, and that's the worst thing that can happen to them because it can lead to a relapse.
How did you start this whole program? How did this get started?
Well,
This is
it
wonderful.
did start in working in the corporate consulting.
Okay.
And as a corporate consultant, I was asked to come in and teach communication skills, stress management, customer relations. And so as I was teaching this, I could see, you know, again, remember, I'm a psychotherapist, so I'm coming from that perspective. Oh my goodness, people are getting emotionally triggered. And when they would become emotionally triggered, they would do and say things that they regretted later. And
Right.
these were good people.
Right, because you know, I know this personally. I mean, I'm usually pretty cool and pretty calm, but every now and then,
Yes.
you know, somebody gets you. I mean,
Yes.
and you have to really be focused.
Yes.
Not to blow your cool.
That's
And
it.
then when you do, you're like, oh my God, how did that happen? Why did I say that? Why did I do
Yes.
that?
Yes.
So you have 5 kids, right?
I have 5 kids.
Okay.
I have 2 grown, and then I have 3 adopted foster children. Had 2 waves of children. So the second wave is right now, they're 6, 11, and 15 years old. And we have a multicultural family too, which is also interesting because they can be open to some criticism or some bullying behavior just because we're a multicultural family.
Right.
So what I teach them is exactly what I'm teaching in the schools. You know, we have to start at home. We have to teach these tools to our kids, and some parents don't have these tools. So I'm training parents at schools. I have invitations all the time. And I never charge to go out to speak to a group of parents because I just want them to have the tools that they need in order to help and support their kids. And if they don't have the tools, then they can't give them the tools. So one of the tools that I like, and that is a very important tool, is don't bite the hook. Now, I like to make this very visual. People are going to say and do things to bait you. They're going to call you names, they're going to make fun of you. It could be on a variety of topics. Now, the most important thing is don't bite the hook.
Don't fall for it.
Don't fall for it. People can say whatever they want. And that's what you were just alluding to, that emotional maturity to know, you know what? This person is trying to bait me, and they're really trying to pull me down to their level. And I have to have a conscious awareness not to fall for it and to bite the hook. And then once you bite the hook, how do you feel? Like that fish, like, oh, I wish I
Right.
never bit the hook.
Right, because you've lost your control.
You've lost your control. I work with my 11-year-old on this all the time because she had issues with this. She was having a hard time. People would say things to her and she'd bite the hook, and then she'd get into, you know, this whole argument with them. And I'd say to her, honey, please remember, don't bite the hook. So eventually Kelsey started coming home and she'd say, Mommy, I didn't bite the hook today. And I was so proud of her. I mean, it's those little successes. But how many people know that they're being baited? How many kids know that they're being baited? And that if they do bite the hook, they're only hurting themselves.
I see here, because you have 12 tools to keep your cool and confidence. Tool 1, discover what triggers you.
Yes. Now, all of the, for the teens, there's a manual for teens, for elementary school, and for families, as well as for educators, and in the workplace, because we need to be on the same page. It starts with a quiz, and it's a 35-question true and false quiz. It helps us to assess our level of vulnerability. And this is important to know because sometimes we're in it and we can't see it.
Right, because if you don't really know where your trigger point is,
Yes.
it's kind of hard to really control it and recognize when somebody's pushing it.
Yes.
You know, so if you know that if somebody says something concerning your personality,
Right.
then that's your trigger point,
Yes.
then you will stay conscious of when someone says
Yes.
something about your personality, you know, okay, I know this is a trigger point. I know this upsets me. So I'm going to stay cool. I'm going to stay confident.
Yes.
And I'm not going to what? Bite the hook.
I'm not going to bite the hook, and I'm going to hold on to my power and my remote control. And there's how many channels are there on the remote control? I remember I asked in a classroom of fourth and fifth graders, I said, you know, how many channels do you have? And really, these channels represent our channels of thought, because there's not just one channel that we can go on. There's multiple channels. And so this little boy in class, he raised his head and he goes, I have 500 channels on my remote. And I said, exactly. We have all these different channels that we can go to, but sometimes we get stuck and we keep going back to the same channel. One woman said, yeah, I'm on the negativity channel all the time. And so we need to be able to shift our channels. We need to change channels of thought. We need to know, how do I change that channel of thought? How can I hold on to my power? How can I make sure that I'm not letting somebody push my buttons and then giving them power or control over me?
I like this one. This is number 11. Every thought that comes into your head should not fall out your mouth.
That's right.
Life and death.
Yes, that's it,
Is
right
in-
here.
in your
Yes,
tongue.
that's it. And so many people say things and later regret it. And so every thought that comes into your head means you can have all the thoughts that you want. You can think any thought, but every thought that comes in here should not just fall out here. And we need to have filters. And some people have dirty filters or clogged filters or no filters at all. And, you know, so when I'm speaking, I often say, you know, sometimes we just have to remind ourselves, we just need to zip it.
Zip it.
Zip it.
Zip
It's
it.
not worth it. And again, we could say things that then give people power over us. And so we
Right.
have to make sure that we're not giving them our power.
I want to go back to tool number 5.
Sure.
Learn to redo mistakes. And then you have here, helps us discover that humility is a big part of success. Humility.
Yes, and humility is about being humble. It's about admitting that we made a mistake. Now, one of the things that's real important is we have to learn, in order to have a redo, sometimes we have to read the signals. So I have a little railroad crossing, and I say, you know, if the lights are flashing and the bars are coming down, bing, 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 and you keep driving, you
Right.
can't blame the wreck on the train.
Right.
You just didn't
Stop.
read the signals. Exactly.
You didn't stop.
You didn't stop.
Right.
And sometimes we don't stop, and then we have to have a redo. And when we have a redo, we can say, you know what? Admit. And admitting is absolutely essential part of humility. You know, I admit I made a mistake, and I apologize for that. And please give me a chance to do it again.
But you know, Gay, one of the things that I discover is it's really hard for us to admit when we've made a mistake.
I know, I love it. My kids, you know, when I say to them, you know, Mommy made a mistake.
Yeah.
I make mistakes too. And they go, really? Because that's not their picture. But I do make mistakes. And it is important that the mommies and the daddies and the adults and teachers around our children say, you know what? We have to have humility. We have to be humble. We have to admit that we've made a mistake.
Because you know what? Some people think that when they admit their mistakes, that lessens their power, that lessens them. And it does the complete opposite.
It does.
Because you earn a respect
Yes.
from others that you're capable.
Yes.
Because it takes a lot
Yes.
to say, you know what? I fumbled that. I messed that up.
Yes.
That's my mistake. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm
And we
sorry
need-
that I hurt you. I'm sorry that I did this. I'm sorry that I did that. But I'm sorry. I'm going to own this.
Yes.
That's very difficult for some.
It is. And part of what I'm asking people to do from a very young age is accept 100% responsibility for your life. And what does that mean? You must take responsibility for what you think, what you say, what you do. You have 100% responsibility for your behavior, because otherwise you get into this blame shifting. And blame shifting will never work. And blame shifting actually is blaming somebody else because you have a problem or you went off because of them. No,
Right.
that's not the case. That's blaming someone else. So we have to own our power. We have to take responsibility, and we have to allow ourselves we're not perfect people. We are going to make mistakes. And when we, as you said so beautifully, when we admit our mistakes, we're stronger.
Let's look at the other things. that
Okay,
you
all right,
have.
this one is really good too. This is about buying the ticket. Now, sometimes we take things personally and they're really not personal.
Right.
But by taking them personal, we have then bought the ticket for the emotional roller coaster. And it's a horrible ride, and we go up and down on this emotional roller coaster all the time saying to ourselves, why did I buy this ticket? And we don't have to buy the ticket.
But we have to be able to figure out what is personal and what isn't. And even if it is, walk away.
Walk away.
Even if it is.
Yeah,
you
because
know?
that's the bait too that some people are trying
Right.
to put out there to get you to bite the hook. Listen, if we don't engage in the bullying behavior by allowing someone to take our power from us, at the essence, at the core, all bullying behavior is about who has the power. And so we have the power to say, no one defines me.
Yeah.
I define myself. And that's what makes us resilient.
Wow, that's beautiful. And you have little sunglasses.
Yes, and this is about reading the signals too. Now, sometimes there are people that are just, they're mean, and we don't recognize it up front. And then, bam, we run into them. And so this is about read the signals. And there are also some people that are very loving, you know, and we run into them. Good fortune to run into them. And we can recognize them and connect with the people who are loving, who are caring, who are genuine, who are authentic. Even a child can tell if a person is a phony. So
Right.
connect with the people.
But you know what I find, which is so impressive to me, is that children can tell.
They can tell. You cannot fool a child.
can't.
No, they
They can
know.
tell.
They know. And so, but something happens to us where we lose some of that intuitive knowledge. And so we have to be sure to honor if our intuition, if our gut says something's not right here, listen to that. That is a signal. That is a message. Sometimes our body registers this before our brain does.
Right.
And so we have to listen to those signals in our body. If we feel that little nervousness in the pit of our stomach when we're with somebody, that's telling us.
Yeah, that's
That's
that
a
little, as we
signal.
say, that gut feeling.
That gut feeling.
Go with your gut.
Go with your gut.
Yeah.
Now, another thing is understanding, and here is the essence of cognitive behavioral therapy as well, is understanding that everyone has their own lenses of perception. We don't see things as they are. We see things through our own lenses of
Right.
perception. And so we have to check out, what is my perception? Because it could be my perception that's triggering me.
Right.
In other words, somebody's not doing it to me. I'm doing it to myself because of my perceptions.
Right. You can have a person, one person, and you have two other people. One person may say, that's a nice person. The other person say, that's a different, no, he's not nice. Or yes, he is not. I mean, but it's all about how you perceive.
Right.
You know, and that's what it is, the changing the perception.
That's right. And
Changing the
cognitive
percep-
therapy is about perceptions, understanding how our thought triggers a feeling that triggers a behavior or action or reaction. And that's the process.
I want to get to the ferent.
the ferent, because
Ah.
sometimes people do mean and hurtful things to us, and what are they doing then? They are renting space in our head, and that is not good. We don't want people renting space in our
Yes,
head.
right.
So what do we need to say to them?
Private property.
Private property. This is my head, and sometimes
To keep out.
keep out, and I need to evict people renting space in my head.
Right.
And this goes for adults as well as kids, because sometimes we get into this kind of going over it and over it again and again, and every time we go over it, it really makes us feel worse
Gay,
instead
you
of
know
better.
what? It's really our decision.
Yes.
It's really our decision to allow this bullying or this mistreatment in
Yes.
our lives.
Yes.
It's your decision.
It is.
You have a choice.
I have power. And that's really the essence of what I want our parents, our grandparents, our kids, our whatever age group they're in to know they have power. They define themselves. And they can learn some very simple tools, these 12 tools, and they can stay cool and they can stay confident in any situation.
Thank you so much.
You're
I'm going to stay cool and I'm going to stay confident. Thank you for being on Conversations. I really enjoyed you.
Me too. Thank you.
I may seem to you like a normal kid,
Normal kids are happy, right?
but for as long as I can remember,
I haven't been.
Around school, people don't treat me like I'm normal,
normal kids have friends, right?
but nobody notices.
Nobody cares.
Until they see me.
They are anyone who's ever pushed me around.
They are anyone who's ever hurt me.
They're anyone who's ever cyberbullied me.
They are the ones who have ever called me stupid.
Who've ever called me gay.
Called me a Jesus freak.
For so long, I let those words get to me.
I let those words define me,
I was what they called me.
I felt like I had no purpose.
like I didn't matter.
But I do have a purpose.
I do matter.
I have a million reasons to be here.
And I don't care what anybody thinks of me.
I am happy with who I am.
I am strong.
I am different.
I am resilient.
And I am who I am.
Hey, did you see what Ashley posted on your wall? Nobody likes you. You think you're so cool, but really everyone's on a bad diet behind your
Basically, the
back.
laughing stock.
Just leave to school. I don't think anyone's so embarrassing. Someone's sky with truth. You're still talking. Stop talking to me. I don't
Why don't
even
you
like
just do us all a favor and kill yourself?
Around 500,000 teens attempt to kill themselves each year due to bullying.
As an educational component of the show, we have added our teen conversation segment. We have Noah Latner and Miles Walker as our hosts.
Hello, Miss Galen. Thank you for joining us today for this teen conversation. I want to start off with my first question. You know the term "sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me." Do you think that is a valid statement? You know, as far as
That's an excellent question, Noah. One of the things that happens is we have to be resilient. And if we are resilient, we can take some of those name calling and it does not affect us. But if we take those to heart, and unfortunately, sometimes young people take those to heart, kids take those to heart, and they think, you know, that's who they are. And I have to remind the kids, especially the young ones, you know, they may say, you know, negative things about their family. They never even met their family. And then here they are saying, you know, some negative things about their family. And I have to remind them that that is not who they are. And no one can define them except for themselves. And one of the things that I suggest that they do is not get blocked, okay? And see what happens when we internalize or take inside of us some of those hurts, it begins to block us. And by the time you get to high school or as a young adult, sometimes people have suitcases of these blocks. And that can block our success, it can block our sense of self-worth, it can even block our health, because sometimes we're so blocked, we have a stomachache or a headache over some of the things that we've internalized. So I share with them, you are the only one who can put the blocks down.
You
Okay?
can't let those blocks build up either.
You can't let those blocks build up.
And I was reading here something about a PSA competition.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. They're going to air some of the PSAs as a part of this program. In Broward County Public Schools, I was able to do a anti-bullying public service announcement competition, and we had an award celebration. The Broward Sheriff's Office and many other agencies and companies, corporations stepped forward to support this initiative. And what it was is I shared the 12 tools with students in elementary, middle school, and high school, and then they created a 1-minute PSA based on one of the 12 tools. And so you're going to be airing some of those as a part of the program. And then we had a competition on YouTube. I have an anti-bullying PSA channel, and perhaps I'll put something on so that they can link to that. It's had over 11,000 views in the last 4 weeks. The competition just ended a couple of weeks ago. And we're going to do these competitions again, and it does two things. One, it helps students learn to use media and performing arts and filming as a means to teach each other how to stay cool and confident and use these tools, which is going to lead to greater success.
Hey, Miss Galen. I wanted to know, how can you tell when someone's bullying you and when they're just joking around?
Awesome question. It's a fine line, isn't it? It's really hard. Sometimes people say, oh, what's wrong with you? You can't take a joke. But here is the way you tell. If somebody takes offense at what you've said, then you've crossed the line. It really is in how someone perceives it. Remember, I talked about the lenses of perception. If you say something derogatory and you say, well, I was just joking, but if I take that as a derogatory statement, then you've crossed the line. And so you have to be very careful. And if by chance, and we all have done this, you say or do something that does offend somebody, the best thing you can do is immediately say, I apologize. I didn't know that would be offensive to you. Please forgive me. And 99 chances out of 100, it's done and it's over with, all right? But some people, they don't apologize. That's that humility we were talking about earlier, being humble. They just keep it going. I don't know what's wrong with them. That I was just joking around. They can't take a joke. And they keep it going instead of ending it and getting past it.
Thank you, Ms. Galen, for today's teen conversation.
It was my pleasure, Noah.
My pleasure too.